People with disabilities and our allies around the world are creating blueprints for bold change. Blueprints for laws that are more than beautiful words on paper. Laws that have teeth. RightsNow, changing the everyday lives of people with disabilities through the power of law. RightsNow is an innovative project administered by Mobility International USA in partnership with DREDF, IFES, USICD, and disability leaders in Armenia, Guatemala, Kenya, Mexico, Peru, and Vietnam to strengthen implementation of laws. RightsNow creates a blueprint for ending discrimination, utilizing principles for social change, such as working in solidarity. Equal rights will only be achieved when people with all types of disabilities are part of cross-disability networks. Information is power. Disabled leaders need to be trained on how to use the law to defend our rights. Because we are worth it. People with disabilities must take a rights-bearing attitude to dismantle all forms of disability discrimination. We can't do it alone. Strategic relationships with government, human rights lawyers, women activists, civil society, indigenous people, and other marginalized groups are essential. There are no rights without remedies. No law is automatically self-implementing. Laws must include timelines, consequences and remedies for violations, designation of responsibility, regulations and standards, the concept of reasonable accommodation. RightsNow works. How? In 6 countries, over 250 organizations led by people with disabilities receive technical assistance on critical issues such as coalition building, access to justice, legal reform, civil complaints, policy advocacy, distinguishing rights from benefits. Over 250 government representatives engaged with disability-led organizations. Over 1,000 leaders with disabilities learned how to enforce national laws. Across countries, leaders with different disabilities strategized side by side, learning from one another and expanding their networks. The results? In Armenia, disability activists drafted rights-based concepts for a new disability law. In Guatemala, a new rights-bearing attitude led to the first landmark disability discrimination prosecution in the country. In Kenya, government, lawyers, and the disability community are paving the way for new sign language interpreter standards. In Mexico, strategic collaborations among lawyers, the Commission on Human Rights, and disabled people's organizations led to greater access to justice for indigenous communities. In Peru, new relationships between disability rights leaders and government officials led to the inclusion of disability in the National Human Rights Plan for the first time. In Vietnam, people with disabilities across the country are now equipped to work with local governments on implementation of their national law and policies. Effective laws have the power to change the everyday lives of people with disabilities globally, so that all people have the right to education, meaningful employment, public transportation, health care, political participation, and to be leaders in their communities. We know what needs to be done and how to do it. Take action. End discrimination. Be part of a global movement to enforce disability rights. Join us. Visit globaldisabilityrightsnow.org and MIUSA.org. The principles in this video were learned from disability activists working on the Americans with Disabilities Act and activists around the world working diligently to harmonize their national laws with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD. These principles belong to all disability activists throughout the world. Mobility International USA, MIUSA, is a U.S.-based nonprofit organization established in 1981, advancing disability rights and leadership globally. U.S. Partners, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, DREDF, International Foundation for Electoral Systems, IFES, U.S. International Council on Disabilities, USICD. In-country partners, Armenia, AGATE Rights Defense Center for Women with Disabilities, NGO. Guatemala, Independent Life Collective of Guatemala, El Colectivo. Kenya, United Disabled Persons of Kenya, UDPK. Kenyan National Association of the Deaf, KNAD. Mexico, Associative Movement for Persons with Disabilities of Jalisco, Marijal AC. Mexico Coalition for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, COAMEX. Peru, Blind Women's Commission of Peru, CODIP. Vietnam, Action to the Community Development Center, ACDC. This project could not have been possible without the collaborative efforts of our U.S. and in-country partners, and the many experts and consultants who shared their expertise with leaders around the world. Professional video clips and photos, courtesy of ACDC, AGATE NGO, MIUSA, and Francisco Javier Lozano Martinez. Narration by Anne Glang. Produced by Capelli Miles. Copyright Mobility International USA, 2018.